about governance and give some tips, present some insights from my side. Let's introduce myself first. I'm Rudimar. I'm from Brazil. Right now, I'm working as a Power App specialist on AB InBev, work with development, internal consulting for other makers, and also with the governance. I'm a Power Apps passionate. Since I started learning Power Apps and working with it, I always say there is no way back. And in my free time, I'm a YouTuber, so I have a channel in Brazil in Portuguese, and other it's a project. I have only a few videos, but I plan to start to grow this channel soon. It's in English. I will share my contact information at the end of the presentation again, so don't worry now. Don't worry to go and subscribe to my channel right now. That's it. Let's get started. Today talking points are going to be the SQL connector and implicit sharing, the C4E, Power Platform Admin Center. I'm going to talk about DLP rules, using solutions, and then we have the Q&A session. In order to explain a little bit, I'm going to tell a story. So let's meet Barry. It's our main character for today's presentation. Barry is a dev in a company, and he's going to build his first tool for the contract manager. This tool is going to help the manager to visualize the resource inside the department, so visualize the employees and their information, as well as manage. So basically, what this tool is going to do is have two buttons. One is for managing and other is for checking my colleagues. So basically, I'm a normal user. I can only have access to check my colleagues and see my colleagues' information such as name, position, and department. Only this. While managing gives the access to edit the salary and personal information. So the user who has access to only check my colleagues cannot see in any ways that information because it's critical for the company. The way Barry was instructed to do this was using Azure AD groups and creating two AD groups, one for the managers and other for the employees, and then sharing the app with these AD groups. Inside the app, he will create a rule where who is in the employees AD groups can only access this part of the app, and the managers can access everything. The data is in SQL connector, and the database is already there. He needs to connect to this database to create the app. Let's imagine this database is related to another source, and this app is just an incremental tool to help the managers to visualize and edit the data quicker. Okay, here is just how the interface looks like for those who don't know Azure AD. Azure AD is the tool from Microsoft that gives access and managed access in users. And in there, we can create security groups. So I created two security groups, one for the employees and other for the managers. And inside these groups, I can add people and then share the app with these groups. Instead of sharing the app with hundreds of people, I share only with the group, and then everyone who is inside the group has access to the app. This is how we recommend people to do in a big organization with a lot of apps, and gives us better control of everything. Right, so it's time for Barry to build his app. He created his app, added the connection, created the logic with the AD, and the app is ready to be shared. So he went ahead and shared with the two groups in here. I'm showing in this slides. Let me show inside the app how it works. Just out of curiosity, how Barry did this access management, and let me show the app working. So let's go to Barry's screen. This is Barry's screen. This is the app working. He is the dev and he is in both groups. So he's checking the tool. In the manage screen, he can find the users, click in one of them, see the information. So full name, employee number, department, job, salary, hire date, and manager. And he can also edit. He's playing the role of the manager. So let's say he can change the salary information and save back to the database. Fine. Let's see how the normal user can see the information. So basically here he can click on check my colleagues, and then he can only see the information as I mentioned before. So he don't see salary because this is highly confidential. We don't want a normal user to see his colleagues' salaries. So the app looks fine. Let's see how I did this to select what people can see and what they cannot see. Here in the on start, I check if I just save the group IDs I got from Azure AD. If I go there, I can get the ID for each group, and I check if the current user is inside those groups. So if the user.email is inside I'm using here a function to check if the user is a member of that group. So I'm checking, there's a AD connection here on the left. And if he is member of the first group, the managers group with this ID, it means he is an admin. If he's member of the other group, it means he is an employee. And on those buttons, I can enable or disable. So I change the display mode depending on the role of the user that's accessing. It looks fine. Okay. We have Jamie Tester. Jamie Tester, he's also a user, and he cannot access confidential details regarding his colleagues. So he is in the age groups that's only for normal users. Let's see he using this. Let's see how the app shows to him. Let's find where is James Tester's page. This one. So here is James Tester seeing the app. He cannot click on manage because he's only an employee. So it looks fine. Oh, see, the data seems safe, but there's one problem. As I mentioned in the presentation, Jamie also wants to be a maker and he's curious. Let's see what he's doing right now. So James here, testing the app, fine. He went to make.powerapps.com. The apps in here, in this environment, the default environment, Barry just created the app here, and the first environment he saw, James accessed the app here, and it works fine, seems safe. But James is looking here, dataverse, connections, what's this? And he sees this. There's a database connection here he didn't create, he doesn't remember. What's this? Let's try. Let's create an app and see if we can access this information. So he's going to create an app from blank, just a test app, and creating a new app. Let's see what Jamie is doing. Let's wait for it to load. Okay, he just saw the connection, so let's try connecting to SQL. Remember that Jamie cannot see any data. He's only a normal user. Wow, there are two tables in this SQL. I don't even know about what is this? Employee. Okay, just loaded and connected. He didn't need to provide any credential. That's interesting. Okay, let's see what data is in there. Insert, where is the table option? Data table, employee. Let's see what are the fields. A lot of fields here. What's this sol? Does it mean salary? See, Jamie just saw the salary of his colleagues in the department. That doesn't seem really nice. He couldn't see this. He couldn't know it's personal information, it's private data. I'm really sure the legal guys, the compliance guys in the company won't like this. Why this happened? Well, Barry didn't pay attention when he shared the app that there was something written, we are sharing a implicit connection, implicit shared connections. That means that when we have this type of connection, mainly database connections, we only need to provide the credentials once, and the credentials are going to be stored in the system. Once I share the app with the users, I'm also sharing the credentials. So they don't need to provide the credentials again to connect to this data. That's it's dangerous. As I said, it's private data, so not good for Barry. Barry now is complaining because he was fired. He did everything to prevent the users to see the personal data, but they saw. So he didn't know about this. He didn't pay attention. It was easier to ignore, as a lot of makers sometimes are in a hurry or they don't read everything and do. And he was fired, sadly. But wait, there is a parallel universe. In this parallel universe, there is a C4E in a different timeline. So Barry is also a dev in this parallel timeline, but there's a C4E. What's a C4E? Well, it's a Center for Enablement. It's an area inside a company where there are people who are there to help with the platform. There are centralized expertise and knowledge, so people that know about the platform, that communicate with the makers, with the community inside the company, and they enable the use of assets. They explain, they create reusable contents, reusable assets, reusable components, advise on best practices, evangelize the platform, establish the operating model, so they monitor everything that's in there and check if the makers, if the platform is working well, if everything is being created correctly, and more, such as engaging the community. So in this timeline, there is a C4E, and there's Rudy that's from the C4E. In this case, it's representing me. So he's saying here that he's from the C4E, and it's here. Oh, I'm here to help you to learn the platform, not to learn. He knows about the platform. So it's a member of the C4E and helps to keep the environments, the app, and flows running smoothly. C4E stands for Center for Enablement. Right, so in this story now, we have one more user, that's Rudy, is from the C4E. We have Barry Dev and Jamie Tester. Now, Barry created the app and it's time for him to connect to the SQL. He has created the app inside the default environment as before, but at this moment, there is an error saying that he cannot create this connection because it conflicts with the company data loss prevention rules. Click here to learn. Barry now cannot connect to the SQL in that environment he was before. So just to explain a little bit about these environments, when creating an app in this default environment, everyone in there is a maker. So everyone can create an app. This environment is the default and is intended for personal productivity. So everyone in the company who has the proper license can create an app and share with his colleagues. There's no way to block someone to go there and create an app because Microsoft, we all want empower people. We want to empower people to make whatever they want and make better apps, make flows to improve their productivity. So they are a maker and they can create apps. But we, for the management, for the C4E, if in case we want to block some connectors, we can do using DLP's data level protection rules, and we can create another environment where we can apply more restrictive rules so not everyone is a maker. And that's what Barry is going to ask for the C4E because he knows that there's a C4E in the company and he is going to ask this question. So he's talking to Rudy. Hi, Rudy. We need to build an app connected to the SQL. It's not working. Can you please advise us? Sure, that's why I'm here. So Rudy now explains that the SQL is blocked because of this problem with the implicit shared connection in the default environment where everyone is a maker, and it's blocked by a DLP. The DLP allows blocking connectors or a group of connectors from interacting with each other in order for this not to happen anymore. Let me show you where this is enabled. Let us see the view of the manager, so the C4E guy who can manage the platform. We have the Power Platform Admin Center, so it's admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com, and he can manage a lot of things. So only the admins can see this part. He can create new environments. Here I'm seeing a couple of environments. And there is also the data policies tab where I can create these policies and block some connectors to show that pop-up to the makers when they try to create, so they are not able to create this connection anymore in the environment where these rules are applied. Basically, I create policies and I can, let me add to this one, I can give a name, I can tell which connector is blocked and which connector is not blocked. So here we have all of the connectors initially in the non-business group. There are three groups: the business, the non-business, and the blocked. I can select one of them, for example, and block or move to business. So I can manage these three groups. If it's blocked, it won't work anyway. People won't create new apps with these connections. It's going to show that error. And the apps that were already using these connectors will stop working, and they will need to be moved to another environment where we have less restrictive rules and the connectors are enabled. So I can move, as I said, move to business and non-business. Connectors that are inside business will only work with other connectors inside the business group. The same for non-business. So connectors inside the non-business will only work with connectors that are inside the non-business group. If I have one connector here that's in business and the other that's in the non-business group, they won't communicate with each other, and we are going to have the same type of error saying that it's not compliant with the DLP rules. Why there are two groups? Let's say for the business, we allow connectors from Office, such as SharePoint, email, only inside the Office group, those tools from Office, where people can build their personal productivity apps to improve some activity for the daily basis. And in the non-business, we can keep the others that are from outside the business, so they won't connect to the business data, and we won't have the risk to, for example, get data from SharePoint that's inside the company. It's also private, it's only for my team, and exports to another tool to send to a Gmail, to insert in another system, and so on. So basically, after deciding which group the connectors are, we go to the next step. We also can treat the custom connectors. I'm not doing anything right now in here. We can select the scope if you're going to add to all environments. So we can add the same rule for the all environments, or exclude a couple of environments, or just select one or two environments as much as we want. After defining the scope, I just added one environment to the policy to do this test. So in this case, I would add the default environment to this policy, and the SQL would be blocked. After this, I can just review and enable. So here is where the managers of the platform will create this policy and avoid that problem. That's the SQL connection shared with everyone in the default environment. Great. Next point. So since it's not working in the default environment and Barry wants to create his app, he talked with the C4E, and Rudy created a new environment for Barry where he can better manage the users and their roles. Here I'm showing I created the HR management prod. So going back to the Power Platform Admin Center, in the environments, the admin can create new environments for the users. Here, there's this one that was created, the HR management prod. And if we click on it, we are going to go inside and set some configurations. Here on users, that I just clicked here, it's in another tab, the other tab. I can add users to this group, and manage their roles as I just said. For example, now Barry Dev, it's an environment maker that will allows Barry to build apps and create connections. So here I just gave him the environment maker role, and he can build apps and share with other guys. While Jamie tests now, he's not an environment maker anymore. He's only a basic user. See, the environment maker is not selected, and that means he cannot build apps, and he will only be able to access things that are shared with him, and he cannot go and create a new app from blank and see that connector and see that data anymore because he's not a maker, differently from the default environment where everyone is a maker. So for example, now, since I created, well, there's one last thing here before showing that I can share the environment in the configurations with a security group. So here's another security group that I've created, the one in Azure AD, as I mentioned before. So here I'm on Azure AD. I have 3 security groups, and one of them that I called STHR app env users, that's intended to share with the users of that environment. I can add people inside it, so the members, and share the environment with the security group. So only who is inside the security group now can access the environment, differently from the default environment where everyone can access. So I restricted the environments to the users, and inside the environment for each user, I have managed the roles that they have inside the environment. So I shared the environment with the security group. Now I can add users that are inside that group to the environment. And James test now, let's see his roles. As I just showed, he's a basic user and not a maker, so he can not create apps. Let's see what he can see now. Here, when creating an app, I can click here and see the environments I have access. See that he's a user of that environment, but the environment doesn't show here because he's not a maker. While for Barry Dev, let's find Barry Dev's tab, he can see the environment because he is the maker, so he can access and create an app inside that environment. Let's see here, for example, he's already inside the environment and recreated the app inside that one to share with the users. Let me copy this URL for the app and open as Jamie Tester to see if he can access the app, even though he cannot see the environment. Where's Jamie? It's here. So Jamie cannot see the environment, but he has the URL for the app that's shared with him. Now he can open the app. The app's in the new environment. He cannot manage, he cannot see personal data, his colleagues' data. He can only check the other information. So there's no salary here and no employee number. He cannot edit, he can only access as a normal user. And he cannot create apps and access that connector because it's not a maker. That's really important. So data now is safe. That won't happen. Barry won't be fired again. Not again, because in this timeline he was never fired. There was a C4E who took care and advised him. Right. Here I'm just sharing security groups and the users. As I just showed, Barry now is a environment maker. He can build apps, and Jamie is a basic user. He can only see what's shared with him and cannot create new apps. Great. One last important tip for the governance and for working with the platform is using solutions. Let me show what solutions are and why they are important. Let's say Barry had to migrate his app from the default environment to the new environment. He has built his app on the default environment, and now the rule was applied. So before he finished his app, it was working. The governance is new in the company. They just knew about this implicit sharing issue and activated the DLP rules. Now the app stopped working, and he has to move the app from one environment to another. There's one way, that's exporting the package here. It will download a zip file and the user can go to change the environment and import in there. That works, but the better way to do this is using solutions. A solution, for those who don't know, it's like a small package. It's a package where we can add apps inside, flows, and everything else we built inside this environment. Then we can export and import in the other environments. So basically create a new solution. I have one created here, and I can add existing apps to the solution as I did. So I clicked on add existing app, Canvas app, and selected the app. I can also add existing flows and other things here. And I can always create new things from inside the solution already. So once it's done, I can export the solution and import in the other environment. And this is way easier than importing and exporting one by one, as well as it brings all the dependencies. So the advice is always use solutions. And if you are going to create a new app, a new application, start by creating the solution first and creating the things, the elements from inside the solution, because once you add something here, it will add all the dependencies. There are some limitations in the platform yet. Let's say, for example, you created a flow outside the solution. I faced this already. It's an instant cloud flow. It's activated by a button, and you want to add to the solution um, and move to another environment. That sometimes won't help, won't work. So there's some, because of these limitations, it's better creating inside, and you won't have problems. Also, when working with solutions, you can export as managed or unmanaged solutions. So that's important. Unmanaged, it's like you are moving everything from this environment to another environment for another dev environment. When you move an unmanaged solution in the other environment, you are able to edit everything. So it's like the development package. While if you move as managed solution, you export as managed and import in there, you won't be able to do these customizations. So unmanaged if you're moving to a dev environment, and managed if you're moving to a dev or test environment. That's how it works and using solutions. Let's see. And also solutions are used to leverage automatic deploys after the app's done. Usually there are three environments, one for the dev, test, and prods, and it's possible to set up a automatic deploy from dev to test and from test to prods. And it's usually used for bigger applications. Now, in this parallel universe, as I mentioned, there's the app end, where the apps from Barry were migrated and working perfectly. And also the C4E was there and helped and respected all the compliance rules and didn't bring problems to the company. The takeaways for this is that what sometimes is easier for you may not be always be best for the company. Let's think that's easier for a maker to just go and build the solution in the default environment. Don't have to worry about anything else, about sharing, about roles, about exporting and importing. The user could ask, please enable this connector here. It's not a problem, but not always what's best for us, best for the company. We are inside the company. We have to look for what's best for the business. Other thing I want you to remember is create applications from inside the solution. So the previous phrase I had put in here was solutions are the solution. Please use it. And always get help from the C4E if there's one in your company and the admins of the platform for knowing the best practices. Maybe we were faster than the time we had, but that's all for today, and I'm open to questions, if any.
Thank you, Rudy Ma. That was a very, very, really helpful session. I think it's going to help a lot of people to build their power apps, enterprise power apps, with better insight into the considerations they need to make for security. So I think you've shared some really good tips there.
Oh, great. Well,
Really good. I really enjoyed that session. Are there any questions, guys? Does anybody have any questions?
Those are simple tips, although it seems simple, but I've seen people who don't know things like this, such as creating a solution. They create everything outside a solution. It's way more difficult to migrate later. A lot of makers, especially people who are just starting the platform. So those are tips that help a lot if people start using, although simple but important.
Definitely, yes. For people who are not familiar with Dynamics, tend to create the app without the solution, don't they? Yeah. Okay. So we'll allow a few more minutes for questions, and then we will begin the next session in 10 minutes time. So for the next session, I believe we should allow the next session to begin 10 minutes. Here we are. So we have a question. Here we are. So we've got two questions there for you, Rudy Ma. The first question from Peter. How much licenses do I need to create an environment?
Right. In order to create a new environment, when you create one, it consumes, actually, it's space in the platform. Someone please correct me if I'm saying the wrong words, but it consumes at least 1 GB of storage space in the platform, and you need to have a couple of licenses, because for each license it gives additional space in the platform. So you can also have some premium users in the corporation, and it will add you space, and you can create new environments, or you can buy additional capacity and also create. So you can also create with no premium license if you buy additional capacity. So the number of, as I just seen Aka Mandela asking, the number of environments are limited. As far as I know, no, but please someone correct me if I'm wrong. I've seen hundreds of environments in one single place. And the other question, I'm new. Oh, there's a comment. I'm new with this platform. This is really a great session. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm really glad I helped. Here, it's my contact again. So my LinkedIn. You can search my LinkedIn, add in there. Thank you if you have any questions. This is my project of channel. Only starting, but I plan to add more videos soon. There is also the other in Portuguese.
Fantastic. So Rudy Ma, could you share your contact details in the chat window, please?
Sure.
Well, thank you once again, Rudimar, joining us all the way from Brazil. Really happy that you were able to join us. There is one more question. The question is, as you can see, it is, what about the number of type of environments? Can I create multiple production environments, for example?
Definitely, yes. You can create trial environments, sandbox environments, and production environments. You can create as many as you want if you have capacity to create. Usually for applications where we took care of the development, we create dev environments, sandbox environments for dev and tests, and also production environments for the deployment. It's also possible to upgrade a sandbox environment to a production environment. It's possible to reset an environment. It's possible also to copy one environment to another. Those are things that can be done inside the platform. So the answer is yes, can create multiple prod environments. Usually, let's say in the dev environment, we give access only to the developers, so it's limited access. To the test environment, we give access to the developers and some people who are going to test before deploying to production, where in the production, the access is for the users. And as I mentioned, we should use the security groups from AD to do this sharing.
That's great. Okay. Any more questions? We're almost towards the end of the hour now. Perfect timing for the next session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for watching my presentation and have a great rest of the day. Here's just starting. So
thank you, Rudimar.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.